Hi there. So my name is Simon Whitney. I am a healthcare assistant in the NHS, and I work on a ward with elderly patients who are there for rehabilitation. And I'm making this video because I love my job. I enjoy it very much, and I'm looking to progress in the future to become a nurse and maybe even go into kind of clinical slash managerial setting. Because I want to enhance my leadership skills and really make a difference in the job that I do. I kind of love to progress and I love to help other people out as well. And I have quite a lot of confidence in what I do, and I've recently started to see people kind of seeing that in me. And so I want to make this video because I want to kind of share to those people who are looking to become future nurses or healthcare assistants, what my tips are for when it goes to working in a ward, because it can be a very scary environment. I remember the first ward setting I did was actually a bank shift, and it was on a trauma and orthopedic ward, and I was the only healthcare assistant in. And I remember the lady, the nurse in charge, she came to me, and she just whittled on about things, and then she gave me a bit of paper, which was the handover sheet, and obviously a list of names, conditions, etc., etc. And I stood there thinking, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and I was so scared because I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like, I haven't been initiated. And turned out that was the initiation. What I learned very, very, very soon and early on was that the nurse setting, hospital setting, is a very specific type of environment. If you're new to nursing and you're watching this video, this is really, really important for you to gather and to understand. There's going to be a massive degree of using your own intuition on this job. There's going to be a huge amount of you needing to have the confidence in yourself to do a job when you're not necessarily getting told how to do that job. And it's really scary when you start off with. I'm lucky in the fact that I have a certain level of confidence when it comes to dealing with people. I just know how to talk to people in a certain way and understand people in a certain way. Whereas I think certain individuals who don't understand the hospital industry, I don't think you're ever going to understand it because it's such a specific environment to understand. But I do believe there's something called a nursing sixth sense, where you just know certain things. And that will be for any industry, whether it's construction or whether it's finance or economics or whether it's running a business or whether it's, I don't know, working with children in a nursery. There's just a sixth sense that you have when it comes to this kind of job. Some jobs, are fairly simple and straightforward. Other jobs require the sixth sense, and you may not have a sixth sense for nursing, but you may have a sixth sense for something else, and that's probably where the area you should go to. But from a nursing point of view, yes, there is a nursing sixth sense in my opinion. So when I got this handover sheet and I went to crack on with the job, I was so scared, and I was just like, I don't know I'm so scared. What I realised I was scared of wasn't really anything to do with the job itself. I was just scared about how I would appear to the patients and whether or not I could help the patients out. That was my fear. And I kind of grew up in my head, this massive fear of, oh my God, am I going to do right by these patients? Am I going to be able to help these patients? And turns out the only way to overcome that fear is just to talk to your patients. And you'll realize that they're just as much of a human as you are. They just have an issue, maybe a hip replacement or ankle issue or, some sort of joint disorder they might have, whatever it might be. And you're not going to know all these joint disorders. You're never going to know all of them. And I wouldn't even bother trying to understand all of them. I tried for a very long time, and it's just not worth it because it's not your job to understand them. Your job is to help the patients with their basic needs. Washing if they need it, help with their food, setting up a tray, repositioning in bed, being empathetic with pain management. If they're in pain, don't rush them. Take your time, because you're building trust with the patient as well. You're building that rapport when you're talking with a patient, and they're looking worried, acknowledge they're worried, tell them that they're right to be worried, tell them that it's okay to be worried, you understand, etc., etc., because they'll enjoy your presence because you understand where they're coming from. Because they're in hospital, they've had a surgery, or they've had surgical management. You don't know what their life is like outside the hospital. You have no idea. So the best thing to do is not to judge them, but to understand and empathise and say, I get where you're coming from, I understand completely, but we still got to get you working hard. They'll be more willing to work hard with you as a patient if you show them a bit of humility, a bit of human understanding, and that you're not, the best doctor or nurse in the world and you know what's best for the patient. Never say you know what's best for the patient until you build rapport. That's a separate discussion for another day. So when it comes to working on a ward, I wanted to talk about my 5 most important tips when it comes to successfully work on a ward. And when I say successfully on a ward, I mean where you enjoy it and where you feel like you've done your job for the day. There are some days when you'll work on a ward and you'll just feel like you've not really achieved much that day. And it's a pretty rubbish feeling because you're like, well, I haven't really done anything. It's been quite a quiet day. I'm just trotting along. And you'll just feel really like, because you might have done 8 hours and you've got 2 hours left or 3 hours left in an 11-hour shift. And you're like, well, yeah, it's been quite a quiet day. And then you'll finish the day off in a kind of like a slumpy mood. Then you'll realise, you've got to go home. And if you have a family, you've got to empty your family and do your family things. I prefer to have a day when I'm feeling like I've really worked hard and done my job so that I still feel like I'm really ready to go. So the first one I've got is to get to know your patients, which I've already kind of discussed. I don't really need to go into more detail about that. Just get to know every single patient when you have. You'll have busy times in the day when you can't. So maybe you'll have your washes in the morning, which might go from like 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And, you can get to know them a little bit in that period of time, but not enough because you're trying to get them washed and get them dressed, or you're trying to help them develop their independence with their washing and dressing, whatever it might be. So in your downtime, just go and speak to a patient. You got to remember, these are human beings who are not really any different to you in terms of that they're human. Yes, there may be some cognitive decline or, general confusion, or something might be going on. Or they could be someone who actually loves to chat and they're stuck in a room or 4 walls and all they ever see every now and again is a nurse do the observations or their food, or when you go to just ask them if they're okay. Granted, it takes a lot of mental energy, and it does, I understand that, to go and speak to a patient time and time again, or to repeat conversation with patients, or to go to more than one patient in the space of an hour to have a chat, because it does take a lot of mental energy. But a bit of positive perspective can help. Remember, you're the one on your feet, you're the one moving around, you're the one able to do certain things. They're less likely to be able to do those things. So go to as many patients as you can in a day and get to know them. And there's a likelihood that you're not going to have a patient for just one day. You're going to have a patient for several weeks, sometimes several months, depending on situations, depending on what's going on. You've got plenty of time to get to know your patients. And when you get to know your patients, you'll know who you kind of work best with, and you'll know who you sort of need to be slow down the pace of talking, be more careful with what you say, loads of other stuff, because you might have people that have emotions that kind of just go back and forth. You might have some that love to chat and you just have to try and work with them as they chat. Some are really quiet. Some prefer female nurses to male nurses. Some prefer male nurses to female nurses. And there's so many things that kind of go on when it comes to talking to patients. Get to know your patients, understand their quirks, their likes, their dislikes, what they're like. You might find that actually when a bell goes off, it's likely to be that patient. And you know that, and you go, it'll be that patient. And I know that patient because they probably want this, this, or this. They want one of 3 things. So when I go there, it's likely to be one of those 3 things. And you know that because you spoke to the patient and you spent time with them. And that's going to make you more comfortable in the ward because you've actually spoken to the patients. Okay, so that's my first tip. Second tip is let your colleagues be themselves. Now, when I worked on a ward, I'm a very kind of pragmatic individual. I like to get things done. I like things to be in order. I like things to be orderly. I like things to be prepared so that the day goes as smooth as possible. And I don't think that's unusual. I think that's quite a normal thing to do. But what that means as well is you can't control every aspect of the working environment. So if you like things to be orderly, that's because you like things to be orderly. I like things to be orderly, but I may work with a colleague who actually just kind of goes with the flow. Maybe I work with a colleague who kind of takes his time or takes his or her time with things. Maybe I work with a colleague who is determined more than I am, and so you get all these different clashes of personalities. And I learned early on, well, not really early on, I learned fairly early on, that you can't control what your colleagues do. You have to let your colleagues do what they got to do, and you just have to work with your colleagues. Because when you work in a ward setting, you haven't got your manager, depending on, manager at the time, always on every single thing, taking care of you, looking after you. You're going to have to look after yourself and look after each other as a team when you're working on the ward, which means you kind of got to give, sometimes you push, sometimes you pull back. That's the best way I can explain it. Sometimes you've got to kind of push a decision. Sometimes you go, okay, this isn't my decision to make, I'll let them make a decision. Even if you don't entirely agree with it, you have to think, do I know what's best for this patient? No. Does this person seem like they know what's best for this patient? Yes. I'll let them do their thing and see how it goes. And I'll work in when I need to work in, and I'll pull out when I need to, kind of pull out of the decision making. And kind of that's where it needs to be. So you can have lots of different personalities, and it's just to let your colleagues be themselves and work with your colleagues rather than kind of like try to manage every single little thing going on. Okay. Number 3, don't try to control everything. Again, some people don't try to control everything, some people do. This is just for those who do like things to be orderly and be in place. I love tidiness, I love order. That's just how my brain works. You may not. Fantastic, absolutely fine. Sometimes things do need to be prepared and organised. Sometimes, things are naturally a bit chaotic, and that's just how they are. But you just have to kind of figure out for yourself what kind of person you are, and then slowly figure your way around the ward over time. Number 4, slow down or try not to rush. This one took me a long time to comprehend and cope with, but it's one of the best decisions I ever made. When I first started in the NHS, I was guns blazing. I was, let's help people, let's solve problems, let's treat people, blah blah blah, and it didn't really get me anywhere, because the problems and the conditions and the patients will always keep coming no matter what. We're working in a 24/7 human industry of people who suffer with ailments and diseases, and those diseases and ailments will never go away. They'll always be there. The best thing we can do is manage them. So, slow down. There's no rush. Medicine takes time. Nursing takes time when you do it correctly. And also, when you're doing an 11-hour shift, the last thing you want to do is rush. If you rush for the first half of your ward day, the next half of the ward day, the second half after your break, is going to be a bit painful, because you're going to be so burnt out and you're going to tire yourself out. Doesn't mean that you go and sit on your phone for 10 minutes and play solitaire without thinking about the ward. No, it just means you go and maybe have a quick glass of water, maybe you and a colleague have a quick 10-minute break with a cup of tea and you just have a chat about stuff, and you wait for a call bell to go off, and that kind of stuff, and then you reset, and then you carry on. But don't rush. In some cases you need to rush. If an emergency bell goes off, you would need to rush. If there's an admission, you need to rush, because the transport people need to get to their next job. You need to get the patient onto a PAT slide and onto the bed maybe. Does the patient mobilise? You need to be there in case the patient needs to mobilise. If it's you taking a patient to a hospital appointment and a transport have arrived and you're in the middle of a wash, you need to think quickly. I need to get someone to tell them that they need to finish washing this patient. I need to get the patient into a wheelchair, or this other patient into a wheelchair, but they stand up very slowly, they walk very slowly, so I need to be there with them, get them into the wheelchair. Then you get your bits together, your paperwork for the patient, you get a coat or a quick drink, or you take a snack pack with you with the patient, and then you go with the patient. Those environments, or micro environments if you want to call them that, are critical for when you want to rush. But other environments, such as if you are taking a patient for a walk, don't need to rush, take your time, go slow, and walk them down a corridor, walk them back, And again, I'm just talking from a rehabilitation point of view. So this information may not be necessary for your particular ward. Maybe you're in a cardiac unit where most patients are possibly laying in bed because they have bad arrhythmias, or maybe they have just come out of surgery for aortic dissections and things like that, and you need to kind of look after them a bit differently. It's going to be a different ward environment. And again, what you'll learn is the kind of personality you are. I'm very energetic. I'm very hyper when I want to be. I love to get things done. For me, slowing down is something I have to really, really think about. I have to focus on controlling my breathing, slowing down, and controlling my energy. But that's why rehabilitation works well for me, because it's the right environment for me. I would not work well on... I've done trauma and orthopedic post-surgical wards before, and not really my thing. I've done other wards, urology, again, not really my thing. Again, it also depends on where you work. Sometimes you'll click with the staff, sometimes you won't, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's just how the nursing industry works. The beauty of the nursing industry is that nothing's ever... No 2 days are ever the same. If you work in an office, you'll be answering calls all day, you'll be discussing projects, all that kind of stuff. But in nursing, it's so erratic and so chaotic, you have to kind of organise things. So it's really fun. But again, depends where you work. If you work in an environment that doesn't feel right to you, you have every right to say, actually, this is not my right environment for me. I think I need to go somewhere else. And actually, you might be doing yourself and your ward team a favour, because if you come into a ward and you just don't like the ward environment, you're helping these patients under the presumption that you enjoy what you're doing, that you will do it. But if you don't necessarily enjoy it, that stress will come into your head. You'll feel bored. You'll feel like you don't want to do it. And that may outwardly project into your work and into the patients, which you don't want to happen. So get to know yourself, get to know the ward you're working on, and see which area of the working environment you enjoy most. Last but not least, this is really, really important. Patient care is about management, not solving problems or eliminating problems. This is a huge one, because what that basically means is that it's about management and not eliminating problems. If you go into it thinking that it's about eliminating problems, you'll be happy when a problem is gone. I say problem, okay, because it's not a problem, depending on who you're talking to. But if you eliminate a problem, you'll be like, yes, I've got rid of a problem. If a problem comes back, you'll be like, oh, another one's turned up. And in that moment when you go, oh, another one's turned up, you have to reframe your mindset. You have to reframe your mentality and say, no, it's not a bad thing. You're trained for this. You want to train for this. So instead of looking at like a problem that needs to be eliminated, it's not black and white. Look at it as you have to manage the situation. Okay? Managing the situation, it's not negative, it's not positive, it's neutral. It is always neutral. And that's the best way of working about it. I remember when I was working with a doctor on outpatient setting in trauma and orthopedics, and he said to me that I need to be more neutral with the patients, because it makes the job so much easier, because you're not judging anybody, you're not getting yourself into a positive or a negative mindset, you're just neutral across the board, and so you get through your day really easily. And he was right. Fantastic advice. So patient care is about management. Management could be a 10-minute management meeting. Management could be you're managing it throughout the day. And that's really good to know, because some patients, their management is a lot more specific than another patient's management is. And so once you understand every patient's management plan and what they need to do, so you can relax with patient in this bed here, but this patient needs to be really looked after. So you won't feel as guilty not seeing this patient as much because they don't need as much. And you'll feel better because you've taken care of that patient for the day. You've written your notes, you've written your documentation, you've gone, okay, I've been to that patient and they've been as fine as they can be all day. Here are my notes, here's my documentation, hand over to the nursing team for the next day, and you've done your job. You'll go home feeling good and not feeling guilty. I've gone home feeling guilty because I've been like, oh, I was enjoying my time with this patient too much today, but I didn't really see this patient, which is what I should have done. And you don't want that feeling. So management, not solving problems. So yeah, 5 tips there. If you are looking to go into nursing or healthcare, just 5 tips from me about kind of what I think are important for healthcare. And, kind of good luck if you are going into healthcare. I hope that you enjoy it. And I hope that you find the area you want to go into. Reach out to me on the comments below if you kind of want to ask any questions. And happy to answer questions you got. Have a lovely day.